Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we have an exciting video in store. We're going to be doing an unboxing, first workout, and first impressions of the Reebok Nano 13. Let's dive in. So, with the Reebok Nano 13, I have been very careful to not look at any of the leaked content or preview content of this shoe. For this video, I essentially wanted to go into them completely blind and not have biases built based off of what other folks have already talked about with the shoe. And so something I'm most curious in before actually physically getting to train in the shoe and really hold it and look at the materials is if it's that different from the Nano 12, because just looking at it right now, it doesn't appear crazy different from the 12. So for context, Reebok Nanos typically will do a pretty big update every 2 years. So for example, from the 8 to the 9, from the 10 to the 11, those models are very different regarding their construction and their overall silhouettes. This model looks pretty similar to the 12 regarding its overall silhouette. So its midsole and outsole construction looks somewhat consistent. Its upper looks somewhat consistent as well. And looking at this shoe, so 3 initial thoughts that I have with this model is number 1, the upper construction feels a little bit more sturdy. So in the Reebok Nano 12, you had that knit around the toe box. It was a little bit looser. This model feels a little bit more rigid with its upper construction. I'm curious how the breathability will actually fare in the shoe and the durability, because it does seem a little bit more like, I want to say sturdy almost regarding its construction. So it almost feels like a higher quality in my opinion than the knit that was used in the 12 and the material that was used in the 11, which is pretty loose and stretched out pretty easily, which I'm sure a lot of folks would agree with as well. And then looking at the midfoot construction, this is something that I was really interested in with this model, because in the Nano 11 and 12, this Rope Pro feature here around the outsole would break pretty easily with rope climbs. And I know rope climbs are a very small portion of folks' training, but if you're gonna have Rope Pro on a shoe, it needs to not break after a couple of rope climbs. And so with this model, it seems to have a similar-esque construction, but similar to the upper, this midfoot feels more rigid, way more dense and a little bit grippier. And so it doesn't feel like it's as flimsy as the prior model's constructions regarding the midfoot. Now, obviously I need to test them, but it looks like Reebok may have fixed that issue in this model, or at least I'm hopeful they did, because that would make this shoe a lot more dynamic, especially for CrossFit workouts when it comes to their long-term durability. So let's hope that that stands true, because this midfoot just feels a lot more rigid. And this rubber outsole wrap here actually feels a little bit more rigid as well, almost like a higher quality, I wanna say, compared to the 11 and 12's midfoot construction. And looking at the outsole, it seems we have a full reworked outsole. It's similar to like that Metaflex tech that you got in some of the other Reebok Nano models. So prior models like the 8, I believe, had it, so did the 9 and the 10. But we have like a similar looking Metaflex tech up here through the forefoot, and this kind of runs through the entirety of the shoe, and we don't have the lugs anymore. And with this rubber outsole, it feels pretty grippy right out of the gate, and it feels a little bit stiffer than prior models. So this model is definitely gonna take some time to break in my opinion, compared to the 11 and 12, just based off of how I'm working them with my hands right now. They are pretty stiff, especially as you get to the midfoot back to the heel. We have a little bit of a beveling of the heel here, and then with the heel itself, we have like this TPU wrap around. I kind of dig this. I think it has a cleaner look, and it seems like it's gonna be a little bit more durable as well. Like, this doesn't seem like plastic that's gonna lip pretty easily, so let's hope that that also stands true for wall slides with this model. I do like its construction right out of the box, so we'll have to test that and see. But overall, I'm digging the construction of the 13 just right out of the box. It seems almost like a 12 2.0. The 12 was a pretty good shoe, but I think if Reebok could improve on some of the nuanced areas of that model that gave you issues regarding durability and just overall performance, I could see where the 13 is going to excel past that shoe. And so I'm curious how they're gonna fit regarding the reworked upper construction, if it's gonna feel snugger. I'm also curious how this shoe is going to perform. So let's go get a workout in. I will see you for the post-workout breakdown. All right, so we started out today's session with some clean doubles. We started out building up to a top set around like 7 to 8 RPE. My coach programs RPEs versus intensities for these. Started out with 265, worked up to 275. This is actually a little PR. However, I haven't really been this focused on cleans in a while. One of my goals in 2023, or actually 2 of my goals, is to deadlift 600 pounds and also clean well into the 300s. So the goal there I think would be like around like like 330, 340, hopefully by the end of the year. I think it's definitely there. So it's super cool to see these moving, I think, in the right direction, especially when it comes to the front squat strength. I then moved into deadlifts here, worked up to 455 in a warm-up, and then capped out with my final warm-up set at 500. My top set of the day was actually at 525, but for that set, I actually went and used the new Vivo Barefoot Primus Light Knit because I'm also testing them. And for more high intensity deadlifts, I like going barefoot or wearing barefoot shoes. So for 500-pound deadlifts in the Reebok Nano X3, they felt fine. I did notice a little bit of a forward pitch, and I think that's just because of the higher drop, but that's just how my pulling mechanics always typically align with deadlifts. But for that intensity and that weight, I didn't have any compression issues, which is a really good sign. But we finished off with some dumbbell snatches and a fan bike circuit. Today was a doozy. All right, y'all, welcome to the post-workout breakdown of the Nano X3. And also, just for the record, I actually had an interview with Tal Short about this model. And I know I've been saying the 11, 12, and 13, but internally at Reebok, they actually call it the Reebok Nano X3. So for all the content going forward with this model, I'm gonna be calling it the X3 because that is what they technically call it at Reebok, just putting it out there so we all know moving forward. So 3 initial thoughts with this model after training in them for now 2 sessions. Number 1, the stability is pretty good, and I would say you can expect a similar stability in the X3 as you did with the X2. So for my 500-pound deadlift, for example, they felt plenty fine. Granted, the higher drop does pitch you forward a little bit, but I think for things like squats, for things like heavier machine work, heavier dumbbell and kettlebell work, they should be plenty fine regarding stability. And then also to follow this up and to add to the stability, the versatility of the toe box is really interesting with this shoe. So I mentioned that it felt a little stiffer when I first pull these out of the box. They actually break in pretty quickly, and I think that has to do with the upper being a little bit more low profile, being a little bit more structured in the context of how it fits the foot. So it kind of broke in pretty quick at the toe box, and I really liked how athletic it felt. So while I thought it was going to be a little bit stiff out of the box, it actually broke in pretty quick. Now that being said, I think if you're somebody who likes a slightly looser fitting shoe, so if you like the Nano X2 and the knit are on the toe box, then you might actually find this model to be a little bit tighter. However, it should just take a couple of wears to break in, whereas conversely, if you like a snugger fitting, more athletic fitting shoe, I think you'll resonate with this model's fit right out of the gate. The second thing with this model is we have this lift and run chassis in the back here. So that's essentially this piece that goes into the midsole here. So it wraps around here. There's like a dome right here at the top of the midsole, a dome down here at the bottom. So like a flat area. And essentially what this chassis is designed to do is as you're getting heavier and as you need to stabilize in certain lifts, it's supposed to like kind of like squish and stabilize, or at least that's what I understand. I actually asked Reebok to send me one of these chassis systems so I could highlight that in future content to give you a better idea, because I'm probably not the best at explaining it. But this chassis system here I thought was really interesting, and you can kind of feel it in this model. And I most felt this when doing actually like some agility work and more reactive work with my friends. We were just training in a session doing that, and you can kind of feel this heel be a little bit more lively with when you're actually like digging into the ground and pushing off. So it kind of like has this like kind of like pop responsiveness to it, and I really dig that. And that kind of adds to why I think the Nano X3 could actually be a slightly more versatile shoe compared to prior iterations in the context of being pretty good for functional fitness, lifting, but also just very good for athletic style training. The third first impression that I have with this model after my session is that with the lacing system, the laces do run a tiny bit long, and I noticed because this model does run a tiny bit stiffer, and while I do think it will break in pretty quick, I had to lace this shoe pretty tight, and what happens is you get a little bit of overlap down here at the bottom of the upper, towards the bottom of the toe box, or the lacing system for that matter. So that was also present in prior iterations of the Nano, so I believe the Nano 9 had this issue as well. But if you have to tighten these laces a ton, you might see a little bit of overlap down here. I don't think it's gonna really impact your performance, but it was something I did notice with this shoe, and I do think as this model breaks in more, hopefully I won't have to lace them as tight, because I was doing a lot of reactivity work. So I like my shoes a lot tighter for that, so I'm hoping as time goes, essentially that's gonna be a non-issue, or at least something that's not gonna bother me as much from an aesthetics point of view. So regarding sizing in this model, I actually think it fits a little bit more true to size than the Nano X2. So in the Nano X2, a lot of lifters and athletes felt like they had to size down in that model. I actually think most folks should be safe going true to size in this shoe. Now, I will have more sizing thoughts on this model in my full review, so definitely stay tuned for that. But if you plan on investing in this shoe before that goes live, I think if you have neutral or wide feet, true to size should be the call. And if you have notably narrow feet, then you might want to size down a half size just to play it safe, or even go true to size if you like having a little bit more of a loose fit around the upper, in the toe box and the midfoot for your foot anatomy. But overall though, I do think this shoe should fit a lot more true to size than the Nano X2 did, which did have a slightly more spacious feel throughout and a slightly longer feel throughout. Overall though, the Nano X3 has been an interesting shoe. Some of the tech in this model is really unique, and I see it as a really good shoe that's kind of good for everything though so far, but as I continue to build out my review, I will take these through more tests. For example, I haven't been able to test this model for rope climbs yet, so I'm dying to do that. And also I do want to squat pretty heavy in this shoe and do more clean work and more functional fitness workouts and WODs in this model just to test its overall range for where it excels and where it starts to fall short. But in the meantime, if you have any questions on this shoe, drop a comment down below and I'll answer whatever you have, or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.